So if you've been living under a rock, then you might be surprised, but this is obviously going to be the first story. The 96th Academy Awards broadcast last night. And, you know, typically what I like to do is write my notes on the stories leading up to the broadcast at night, so on Mondays. But I just started a new full-time job, so I was like, okay, I'm going to start writing my notes on Sunday. But because this was Sunday night, I didn't really have a lot of time to prepare these notes. So some of these is going to be kind of just me taking a look at the information and kind of just giving you my stream of consciousness thoughts here. But I'll try to keep it as structured as possible. So 96th Academy Awards. Let's take a look kind of at the scorecard here in terms of the films that did the best. So the big winner here, and we all knew this going into this ceremony. Oppenheimer, the big winner here with the most wins at 7. I believe it had, what was it, like 13 nominations? That's a pretty good percent, I guess. The awards that it won was Best Picture, obviously. It's been the favorite probably since it released back in July of 2023. It's also the highest grossing Best Picture winner in like 20 years. I don't have the exact film that record is now I think it was the third Lord of the Rings. That would have been what this is referring to. Also won Best Director for Christopher Nolan. Long overdue, especially due to the infamous Dark Knight snub from, like about 15 years, almost exactly. Also Best Actor, Cillian Murphy, very well deserved. Best Supporting Actor, Robert Downey Jr. in his first win, as well as also a lot of these are all their first wins. Christopher Nolan and Cillian Murphy. But Downey Jr. had been nominated famously for his role as Charlie Chaplin in the film Chaplin. Oppenheimer also won awards in Best Original Score, Best Cinematography, and Best Editing. Cinematography and original score, very much deserving. Editing, I don't know. Christopher Nolan movies have this thing. I heard someone describe it like his movies are all edited like trailers. So, like, there's this weird pacing that always feels like you're always moving at a breakneck speed. I think for this, it actually worked really well compared to some of his other films that maybe needed to be a little bit more introspective and meditative. But, yeah, so 7 wins here. The next most wins was for Poor Things, coming in at 4 wins, 4 awards last night. Big surprise here is Best Actress for Emma Stone. Now, surprise may be an overstatement because Lily Gladstone and Emma Stone, both Stone names, had been kind of ping-ponging, from my understanding. Like, all the award shows or ceremonies that lead up to the Oscars, Lily would win some, and then Emma would win some others, and I felt pretty strongly that it would be Lily Gladstone. Now, the person I thought deserved it was neither. I really liked Carey Mulligan in Maestro, but I knew she wasn't gonna win, right? So I was like, okay, if she's not gonna win, I'm really happy that Lily Gladstone could win this award just for what it would mean, right, for the industry. Again, I've talked about this a lot, but I think it was the 1973 ceremony, which was honoring the movies that came out in 72. Marlon Brando won for Best Actor, but he didn't show up. Instead, he had this Native American woman who turns out years later has come out that maybe she's not quite Native American, but basically he sent her to accept the award, but essentially not accept it because of Hollywood's treatment of indigenous communities, right? And that person got booed, and supposedly, this is on camera, but supposedly John Wayne had to be restrained. He wanted to rush on stage and beat the shit out of her. So it's just crazy to see how in 50 years how far we've come. And that's not to say woohoo, we solved prejudice and racism and representation in Hollywood. That's not what I'm saying, but it does speak to the moment that Lily Gladstone was the front runner in this category, right? So I kind of wanted her to win, even though her performance I did not think has been a little overhyped in Killers of the Flower Moon, and I said it even then. But still very strong. Emma Stone probably gave a better performance just because she just had more material to work with. And I think Emma Stone didn't want to win because I think she wanted Lily Gladstone to win for all the reasons I outlined. So like when they announced Emma Stone, like she seemed kind of caught off guard, and her speech, she was very like nervous, which, you know, makes sense. Like, I mean, I would be nervous going up there, but it just had like a certain vibe that she wasn't expecting it. So that was probably one of the bigger surprises of the night. But so Poor Things, that was one of the awards Poor Things won. It also won awards in Best Production Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, and Best Costume Design. Really surprising that Barbie didn't take one of those, especially production design. Poor Things has incredible production design, but a lot of the most impressive pieces, I from my understanding, a lot of that is computer generated. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just so good that I just assume it's computer generated. Whereas Barbie, I believe, while also featuring some computer generated imagery, was very tactile, and it looked very tactile. So I'm surprised that it didn't win Best Production Design. But anyway, so Poor Things ended up with 4 wins, and then the only other film that got more than one award was The Zone of Interest at 2. It won Best International Feature, which of course makes sense whenever you have a film that's nominated in both International Feature and Best Picture. That one is going to win the Best International Feature, right? All the other ones are, if they weren't nominated for Best Picture, then the math isn't mathing, right? It also won Best Sound, which is interesting because the whole point of the movie is that you never see, it's all about the Holocaust, and you never see what's really going on in the concentration camps, but you hear it, right, in the distance. Like, kind of in the silence, you hear kind of in the distance the crying, the wailing, potential shooting, or whatever it might be. So that's pretty well, I think that's, I'm fine with that. In terms of a scorecard for distributors, there was only 4 distributors that received more than one award. Universal coming in at 7. I believe that's all for just Oppenheimer. Searchlight, which was Fox Searchlight, but is now owned by Disney, nabbed 4 awards. I think that's for Poor Things. And then A24 got 2 awards. And then Toho, which is a Japanese distributor, they do like Miyazaki films, I believe. And then the Godzilla film, they got 2 wins. In terms of some specific wins I want to note here, you have Divine Joy Randolph winning Best Supporting Actress. Everyone knew that she was going to win going in. She had been winning all of the awards leading up to this. But it was, again, just great to see her get this win. And her speech was really powerful and really talked just about like that feeling of finding a place in this, and, you know, this is your calling, and, you know, like on paper maybe it sounds like a little cheesy, but just you could just sense a huge level of complete gratitude. You know, I forget what she said, but she was like, thank God, like, you know, not thank God like, oh, thank God I won, but like, you know, like kind of speaking to like this larger kind of humility about her success. So that was really great to see. And that was the first award announced. So it really set the tone, I think, for the evening. Some surprises here in terms of the screenplay categories. Anatomy of a Fall won Best Original Screenplay, which I guess makes sense, but I was half expecting it to be The Holdovers. So that was a little bit of a surprise. Also in Best Adapted Screenplay, I figured Oppenheimer would walk away with it. But American Fiction pulled through and won that award. And Cord Jefferson, who wrote and directed the film, made a really great speech just about a lot of things, but also indie kind of film production, and kind of made a case for studios, you know, instead of making one $200 million movie, make 20 $10 million movies, because you're going to get a lot more diversity in ideas, diversity in terms of representation. It's going to make the whole industry and the landscape and the market for consumers just way more interesting. Godzilla -1, or as Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was announcing it, says, Godzilla! It is the first Godzilla film ever to be nominated for an Oscar, and now the only one to have won. So that was really cool to see. I kind of wanted the creator to win just because of how, you know, organic and textured that VFX looked. But this also was a great looking film. So it's great to see that get that win. Notably, Killers of the Flower Moon, despite receiving 10 nominations, did not win anything, which, you know, happens every year. You have a film that racks up a bunch of noms and then walks away with nothing. But again, the Lily Gladstone one is surprising. And then Barbie, which was nominated for 8 awards, only won 1, and it wasn't even really for the film. It was for the Billie Eilish song, What Was I Made For? So that's kind of a rundown of like the major notes for the awards. In terms of like the ceremony itself, it started at 7 Eastern instead of 8 Eastern. it should be that every year. Why have we been doing 8? Or I guess in Pacific time 5. Like it was so much better. Because then it's not like we're like egging, like, okay, wrap it up. Like, you can let it breathe a little more. Like, I don't think people care as much that it's long. It's just that how late it goes. So especially for us on the East Coast, right? It actually started a few minutes late due to some protesters outside protesting, related to the war in Gaza right now. But the total broadcast ended up being about 3 hours and 23 minutes. Not sure how that fares against past Oscar broadcasts, but definitely meaty. But for someone like me who likes this stuff, it flew by, and we had people come over, and it was fun, right? In terms of Jimmy Kimmel as a host, I've always liked Jimmy Kimmel both as a comedian and as an Oscar host, but I know he's very polarizing. I thought he was, if you like what he does, it was exactly what you would expect. He even at one point near the end of the broadcast read a review. I guess Trump posted on Truth Social, like, as he does, reviewing or I guess more critiquing Jimmy Kimmel in the whole broadcast. So it was kind of funny to hear Kimmel read that for everyone, but basically I imagine that was unplanned. And also at the very beginning of the broadcast, he had a whole thing about honoring all the below the line workers, and have all, and if you're not sure if you don't know what that means, below the line workers are essentially all of like the unglamorous quote unquote positions on a film. It comes from, I think, like on a call sheet, there'll be like a list of all the quote unquote important people, and then there'll be like a big black line, and then you'll have like the grips, the props people, the costumes, all those people, right? He also kind of talked about the strikes and solidarity, and he had a really good dig at the Directors Guild, which, infamously did not go on strike, and was not in solidarity with the writers and the actors. And Kimmel was like, the strikes this year, all of you were on strike. He's like, well, not you, the directors. You guys folded immediately. So I thought that was funny, right? So it's like things like that. Like he's willing to kind of dig in there a little, right? In terms of presenters, the best one was John Cena. So I guess 50 years ago, there was a streaker, like someone ran across the stage naked. So to like reference that, they had this whole bit where John Cena was going to come out, obviously not, but John Cena was going to come out naked and introduce an award, but he gets cold feet, so he comes out holding the envelope and blocking his pelvic region, his crotch. Very funny. John Cena is he really needs to be in more movies and better comedies, because he has some good comedic chops and performance abilities. So that was really funny. There was a whole bit with Kate McKinnon sending tasteful nudes to Steven Spielberg, and it was just lots of silliness. John Mulaney had a whole thing just explaining the plot of Field of Dreams, and he really should host the Oscars, because he's hosted award shows before. I think it was SAG or Spirit. I forget what it was, but he would be a great that would be a great option for a host in the future. But then by far the strangest was Al Pacino. So they had Al Pacino come out and announce the winner of Best Picture. And I've said this out loud, and then I saw a bunch of tweets after, and I'm like, if only I had tweeted it, then I could have gone viral, right? But I feel like every year, they always give the job of announcing the Best Picture winner to like the oldest, most confused person ever. And I always get so anxious, especially after 2016 with La La Land and Moonlight, like that mix up. So Al Pacino, he seems like he has no idea what's going on. It seems like he's not even reading the teleprompter. And I don't, because there's so many nominees for Best Picture, like they kind of do an overview like throughout the broadcast. Like they'll do one and then 20 minutes, and then another. I don't know if they were meant to go through them all again, but they didn't, because Al Pacino just like basically got out there, and within like 10 seconds, he's opening up the envelope. So I would imagine that he was supposed to say, here are the nominees, and then they would cut away. But he was just opening it up, and then his vocabulary was, my eyes see Oppenheimer. And like the clapping didn't start right away, because everyone was like, wait, what? So it was very funny, and I was like, oh, okay. And again, it held that it wasn't a surprise. Like we knew Oppenheimer was gonna win, but just the way he said, my eyes see Oppenheimer. Like he sounds like he's like doing a raffle at like a local public elementary school, and it's like, my eyes see Janice won the toaster, so it was just very silly. Just last thing I want to touch on were the performances. Some really great songs were nominated this year. The winner was, like I said earlier, What Was I Made For? The Billie Eilish and Phineas, her brother, song. Really great song, just very much deserving of the win. And great performance by Billie Eilish. This very, very reminiscent of the actual track, the actual recording. It's very kind of breathy, gentle, soft, kind of almost melancholic, kind of introspective reflection. It was just really beautiful. But then on the complete opposite extreme, you have the other Barbie song, I'm Just Ken, which I've never quite liked, and I never understood the obsession people had for like a few months after Barbie came out, because it's kind of like a mid-song, at least lyrically, but I can't tell if it's meant to be mid, like are they in on the bit, kind of, so I don't know. But the performance was very good. Ryan Gosling was very good, like almost like rock star level. And speaking of Rockstar, it felt like the Super Bowl when during the thing there'll just be like random surprise cameos from different musical artists. This is how this felt like, because Slash from Guns N' Roses showed up, shredding the guitar. So again, very silly. And then the other performance I want to note, because the other two I'm not going to note were kind of forgettable. But we had the song from Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm not going to pronounce this right, but it's Wazaze. And which I guess translates to A Song for My People. I think it's the song that plays at the end of the film. And again, just seeing that 50 years between a Native American woman, quote unquote, getting booed and potentially getting beaten up by John Wayne, to now 50 years later having authentic indigenous performers performing this song, is just really great to see. But yeah, that's kind of the overall, I think it was a decent broadcast, nothing crazy, but no controversies, right? And I think that's all that the Academy wants at this point after the past decade of Oscars. They just don't want any more controversies.